Are you tired of your drums sounding like this?
You won't catch me feeling blue now over you. Oh, you said that you let me fall.
We can both agree that sounded like absolute. Fear not, because today in 4 simple steps we're going to show you how to take it from that to this.
You won't catch me feeling blue now over you. Oh, you said that you let me fall. I'll rise above it all.
What's up, guys? I'm Josh,
And I'm William,
and we are Academia Audio.
and we're going to be going over the 4 steps today for Slap Yo Mama drums. Number 1 is going to be quality samples. Number 2 is going to be gain staging. 3 is post-processing. And 4 is a little secret that we will get into. So stay tuned to the end. So the reason you want to choose quality samples is because if you choose a bad sample, you're going to be doing a lot of making up in the post-production. You're going to be adding a lot of plugins and fixing stuff. And if you just choose a quality sample in the beginning, you'll be saving yourself a ton of time. We chose this particular kick in this drum beat because the emphasis of this song is the bass. And so we didn't want something too boomy or anything. We wanted something short and tight that kicked through the mix. This is what that sounds like. Super punchy. It's a really great sounding kick. When we first were listening to this clap, it was lacking a body to it. And so what we did is we went and found this snare that has a little bit longer of a tail. And when we layered those together, you get that punch through with the clap and then the body of the snare. And together, they're going to sound like this.
Nice and full.
Exactly. Next, we use this top loop.
Yeah. Also, guys, don't be afraid to use top loops. They can be super useful, when you have an idea. Sometimes by taking the time to build out all the individual perks to create a loop yourself will pull you out of the creative process, which is something we'll talk about more in another video. But go ahead, feel free to use top loops. Even if you don't go back and make them unique or anything, use top loops. Everyone does. No one's going to know. Just use the top loop.
Exactly. So this top loop had a nice groove to it. Now, you hear that little flare in the loop? We thought that we could add maybe an open hi-hat in order to accent that. So this is the hi-hat that we added right here, the open hat. So together, I want you to hear how full this sounds. Hear that swing feel come out a little bit more? That's what we did by layering this. Mm-hmm. So all together, here's what that sounds like.
All right, guys, that brings us to point number 2, and that is post-processing. Okay, let's jump right in. I always like to start with the kick, so that way I can kind of balance things out with the kick as my anchor point. So a few basic moves I did on the EQ here that I usually do for most of my kicks. It doesn't always come out to the same numbers. I always kind of tweak everything according to the kick I'm using in the song. But the first thing I always like to do is cut out anything below 30 hertz. The second step is I boost around the 50, 45 here, but the 50 hertz range, and that's really the frequency that's you're gonna feel the kick in your chest. If you have a kick lacking in your song, or like that drum loop that you heard at the beginning of this video, it's lacking that 50 hertz, and you're not able to feel it hit you in the chest. So I would diagnose it with that and see if that helps your kicks punch through the mix a little more.
It's a good tip.
It is a good tip. The third thing that I like to do is I cut out this frequency right here. There's usually some kind of click or knock, and I can kind of demonstrate that for you guys really quick so you can hear what that sounds like. Yeah, we don't want to bring that cowbell back to life, so
Kill the cowbell.
We're going to pull that down, and you don't have to cut it this drastically. I just personally thought it sounded good for this kick, but it's usually around the 450 to 550 hertz range if you're looking for that. And then I also rolled off a few of the highs, and that's it, right? Simple EQ moves, nothing crazy. Moving on to the snare, considering we had some layers going on with the snare and the clap, I wanted to EQ them appropriately, right? We want to make strategic EQ moves to support other instruments in our track, and so we're relying on the top end of this clap, and so I EQ'd it that way. I boosted the top end a little bit and I cut off the lows. Moving on to the snare, I actually rolled off some of the highs on the snare and also rolled off some of the lows. That way they're kind of taking up different spaces in the EQ spectrum to achieve different tasks. The snare is achieving the body and the low mids. The clap is achieving the higher end of the frequencies. So together, without the EQs.
Man, there's a ton of low end in there.
Yeah. Also, the last thing I did with the clap is I moved it just ever so slightly to the left, panning-wise, just to kind of give it some space of its own, so that way the two transients aren't hitting right on top of each other, and that's going to help you in your mixing and your mastering process. When you go to compress it, there's not going to be a huge peak right where those transients are hitting together. The other thing I did with the snare was I just shifted it ever so off to prevent those transients from hitting on top of each other as well, and give it a little bit more of a natural feeling. When a drummer is playing the drums on a real drum set, he's not going to hit the snare at the same time every single time, so by shifting that, it gives a little more organic feel to your drum groove. So all I did with the cymbal, keeping it simple, the hi-hat loop, is I just rolled off some of the lows just to ensure nothing's competing with that kick or the sub. I did the same with this open hat, but I actually cut off a significant amount, and the reason I did that is, again, this instrument is an accent instrument to our top loop, and I wanted to EQ it accordingly and just use that upper spectrum of the frequencies, like kind of a white noise effect almost. And I also pan these a little bit left and right to give them their own space as well. So that pretty much sums up the cymbal bus. Just simple EQ cuts, just panning things. That's really all this needed. Again, we started with quality samples. The last thing we tackled when it comes to post-processing is the drum bus. Okay, just want to glue those things together, saturate it, give it some color and character. All I did for that was I grabbed a Saturn, and you can use any saturation plugin here, and you can just put it on a saturation setting. I like to use gentle, and then we just start cranking the drive knob until we feel it's at an appropriate level. Typically, I like to go up until I can hear it to where it sounds bad, and then I just dial it off until I feel that it's at a good level. Just a little tip with really any kind of drive knob or anything that you're trying to dial in the wet and dry.
And again, simplicity is key. The quality samples, you're using a little amount of saturation. Mm-hmm. It's not a taco with hot sauce. You're just drowning the taco with hot sauce, you know?
Well,
if it's a good enough hot taco. What?
You're the only one that does
No,
that.
I don't do that. I do. No. If you have a good taco, you just put a little bit of hot sauce on it and it's perfect.
That's true.
You know, if you have a bad taco, you got to cover it in hot sauce so you don't taste the taco. Mm-hmm. That's why quality samples are important. Just a little bit of saturation will make a world of difference. You don't want to mess up your sample too much.
Next, we put some compression on the bus. All we did was use the drums preset on the R compressor by Waves. And then we just dialed it in according to our drums. So just pulling this threshold back until I like to shoot for the 3 right here. But again, use your ears. There's not a magical number. You want to listen to this, and we can do this together really quick. I'm going to turn off the gain as well. An extreme. So that sounded pretty good. Anytime you compress something, you're always going to lose a few dBs.
That's right.
So,
not lbs, dBs.
Anytime you compress something, you're probably going to lose a few dBs, and there's a simple way to get that back really quickly. So what you're going to do is keep your drum bus up. You're going to go over to this view. You're going to go ahead and turn off that compressor. Make sure your drum bus is soloed, as we can see right here. And you're going to look at the master and see where you're hitting on the master. So about 10.7. We're going to now turn on the compressor and see how many dBs we lost. So about 3. And the goal with this compressor is not to get your drums louder, okay? We just want the effect of compressing those transients to get a more consistent sound. So I'm going to add 3 dB to the gain, and now let's see where we're hitting. Perfect. And that'll wrap up post-processing on these drums. Again, we kept it simple. We addressed some issues with the EQ. We added a little saturation. We added a little bit of compression, panned a few things. That's it. It's super simple. Don't complicate it. So our third point, gain staging. A lot of you guys can get a little nervous about gain staging. It's not as intimidating as you may think. You might be asking, well, how loud should my kick be? How loud should my snare be? How loud should my hi-hats be? The first step is go download our template, and that's going to fix all your problems.
Exactly.
If you didn't download our template, here's a really quick tip to kind of get everything in the right area. Okay, this works if you have a Pro Q. So I'm going to pull the Pro Q up. I have it on my drum bus, okay, and we're going to dial in our kick first. We want our kick to be hitting right at this yellow line. So let's go ahead and see where it's hitting. Perfect. So now we're going to move along to our snare bus. We want our snare bus to be hitting between this -3 and the 0 line, so let's give that a listen. Perfect. Moving on to our cymbals. We want our cymbals to be hitting about this yellow line as well. If it goes over a little bit, it's not a big issue. Again, this is just to kind of get it into the ballpark range. We're going to use our ears to dial in everything appropriately. So that's sounding great. And you might be asking, how are your levels already almost perfect? Well, it's because we have a template that does a lot of the heavy lifting for us. So if you haven't downloaded that, go download it. It's incredibly useful.
I mean, sliced bread, our template. It's an easy decision.
I'm just double checking with my ears, making sure everything's sitting kind of where I want it.
We're now here to the fourth point, which is the secret sauce I said in the beginning, parallel compression.
Parallel compression.
To be honest, though, there is no one secret sauce. It's honestly the combination of everything and making sure you are following these steps. That is the secret sauce, not any one thing in particular. Basically, what parallel compression is we're taking the dry signal from our drum bus and we're throwing it through a return track right here. On the return track is our compressor, which is compressing the ever-living crap out of it. Now, what we're doing is we're taking that ball of compressed energy that is our drum signal, we're going to be blending that back into our drum bus. And what that's going to do is during our post-processing, we lost a little bit of the oomph by using saturation and reverb, a little bit of panning. And what the parallel compression signal coming back through does is going to add back in the oomph and warmth of our drums. So I'll show you guys exactly what that looks like. I'm going to solo out the parallel compression for you guys real fast. I'm going to show you how in your face it is. And that's not necessarily a loudness thing, that's a compression thing of why it's so in your face. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo out I'm going to A-B in for you what the drum bus sounds like without any parallel compression. Yeah, there's some washed out, it's lacking the oomph. So what we're going to do is I'm going to be blending in the compressed signal in with our original signal, and you'll be able to hear that oomph come back into our mix. That sounds good right about there. So So, and then I'm going to disable it and show you guys what that sounds like before and after. That's off. And this is on. Hear that presence and depth is now back into our drum bus. So that's the power of parallel compression right there.
Yeah, again, it's a subtle difference,
Subtle.
but it all adds up. You know, it truly all adds up. It took us many years of music production to really start adding up these subtle moves to go from amateur mixes to professional sounding mixes and masters.
That's right. One of the worst things and mistakes that I did when I first started out was thinking everything was the secret. When I first found out about saturation, I was like, this is the best thing. And I just would throw saturation on everything and crank it up.
OTT.
Or compression. OTT, the original.
OTT.
Let's go.
Slap OTT on anything and it sounds better.
That's
not
right.
True.
That's not true. So our goal here is to show you guys how simple and easy music production is.
Absolutely.
We're trying to show you guys how to not make the mistakes we did in the beginning.
Anyways, guys, if you use these 4 tips in your mix and you found it helpful, please comment down below. If you just want to roast us, if you have any questions of any videos you want us to release in the future, please let us know. We want to release content that is beneficial to you guys and of value. So definitely hit that like button and subscribe. And thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Peace.
Not over you.